Okay, we're back. Let's go to the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks are currently, I believe they are 13-11. They are in fourth place in the Eastern Conference. They are in fourth place in the Eastern Conference, despite the fact that they haven't had John Collins in a week. DeAndre Hunter has a thigh injury that has held him out now. It's just a weird deal. They've finally gotten Bogdan Bogdanovic back. Every time I watch them, though, I still just don't know what this team is and how much of this is real, how much of it is going to be sustainable, I think is something I struggle with. Let's start there. Mark, what are your impressions of the Atlanta Hawks to this point in the 2022-23 season?
Well, I will say I do feel the defense has been a lot better. And it feels the defense does.
You're starting positively. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I do. Well, yeah, because I have a lot of negative things to say. So I think that has been good to me. I've enjoyed that. Like we've talked about, I think I'm probably a little bit higher on Clint than you are, but like Clint has been really big for them. I think what they've found with the bench unit and just in their younger guys to round out the rotation has been nice. But overall, like I come down to Trey's been in a pretty massive slump to start the year. It seems like his shoulder has really bothered him more than we anticipated it doing. And that has impacted things. But even then, I think like, yes, the offense would improve a little bit. Like I think that they'd be more into like the 10 range in offensive rating if Trey was shooting around his normal splits right now. But compared to what that was last year, I mean, that's such a drastic drop off. And it's not just the numbers. It's like the integration sucks. Like John Collins has just kind of been phased out, it feels like.
Yeah.
They really haven't found a way to utilize him. It's a lot of my turn, your turn with Trey and DeJounte. I actually feel the bench has been a lot better depending on who's running it. Like I think DeJounte with the bench unit has actually been fun because they'll do DeJounte with Clint Capella. I think DeJounte is a really good player. But I do think he's a lot more limited of a passer than his numbers tend to indicate. Like, especially what last year was like, he's an incredible pick and roll passer. Like he's really good with pocket passes. He's a good lob passer. He can hit the corner skip. But I think when you take him out of that pick and roll scenario is where you see some of the limitations in his floor vision. And that's not meant as a slight to him. But I think, again, when you're taking it out of like the straight up, okay, we are running pick and roll to death because DeJounte's incredible getting into his mid-range game or hitting a really capable roller. When you take it out of that, it's just kind of like, it just feels like fluff a little bit. And that's while also noting there just isn't a lot going on in the offense. And I think
so. That's what I wanted to like start with is everything feels difficult for them, right? Yeah. Like, do you feel that when you watch them?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, like even like I'm just talking about right now, like DeJounte is not really getting to the rim a ton. Like a lot of it is just, I mean, he is a very good mid-range shooter, but again, like, okay, if the shot doesn't fall, what is the impact on the defense? So I think that's an aspect that's really difficult. But then again, like you're mentioning too, like there's very little off-ball action that goes on. Like there's just not a lot going on in terms of exchanges. And what's frustrating is like they have the personnel to be more inventive than they are. I think on one hand too, like this does need to go on.
They don't got the coach for it though.
That's, I mean, all this stuff are the Shams Charania of the Athletic and his reporting with the spat between Trey and Nate McMillan that led to Trey not going to the game against Denver, which that's the whole thing. But like, to be fair, it is two-sided. Like, I don't think Trey has done a particularly good job of trying to be part of the offense when he doesn't have the ball. Again, part of that's on coaching. And I imagine like if there was a coach he was bought into, then maybe we see it be a little bit different. Same thing on the defensive end. Like you can look at what Trey did last night against OKC and say, hey, he got into the paint a ton. He was dishing the rock. He got to the free throw line a bunch, and that's all well and good. They're throwing double teams at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander most of the second half. They may as well have just been throwing one on the ball because Trey was not doing jack shit. Like he's just standing there with his arms at his side, not providing any force. And I know a lot of people look at this and be like, well, he's 5'11", 6 foot at best. Like he weighs 180 pounds. What do you expect him to do? Fight. Like when you look at what the Knicks series was and just that entire playoff run, like Trey tried on defense. And it was very notable. He did a ton to make himself as small of a liability as possible. And we haven't felt that this year. We didn't feel that last year either. And I think if this team, yes, they traded Kevin Huerter, but I still feel like it's pretty clear. Like if you make that move for DeJounte Murray, and I've had Hawks fans disagree with me on this, but I think by making that move for DeJounte, like they very clearly are like, okay, well, we're here to compete this year. Like we made the Eastern Conference Finals once. Like obviously, yes, there's the stuff with the ownership not being willing to get into the tax, but that's been a thing for them even when they've been a title contending team. So I just am really disappointed with where this team is at, and I think we're pretty fast tracked towards some kind of change happening there.
I think it's impossible to be disappointed, I guess is what I would say. They're 13-11. I think you can be disappointed by the process.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Like, but even then, like, I feel it's the losses that they have accrued that are really disappointing, because I think I look at again, like the process is disappointing, but also when I look at this team, like OKC is a better team, but like you have two all-star level players, you have a borderline defensive player of the year candidate in Clint Capella. Like you have a pretty good rotation. Like, yes, DeAndre Hunter is out, but you should be able to beat Oklahoma City if you're out there and you're playing your best.
You should be able to win a home game against Oklahoma City.
Exactly.
I totally agree with that.
And like they lost to the Philly team that didn't have Joel Embiid or James Harden. Like that's a joke. When you have Trey and DeJounte, they lost to the Rockets. Like that game to the Rockets was pathetic. And I know that's a super, you know me, I'm not a negative person. That's a lot to throw out there, but I think to me, like, I don't know, maybe I'm definitely a lot more down on this team than I think you're at.
Yeah, like it's interesting. So they started out really well. They started 7-3 in their first 10 games, right? Mm-hmm. And they beat Milwaukee, they beat the Pelicans. Like they had a couple of really, really good wins in that time. Since then, I mean, they beat the 76ers. I don't think that was a game where the 76ers had like a full complement. They had Joel and Tyrese looking at the box score in that game. So, a good win there, I guess. They beat Milwaukee again, but like lost to the Celtics, lost to the Cavs, lost to the Rockets, lost to the Heat, who are scuffling right now, lose that game to the Sixers. Their wins are against the Magic and the Nuggets. The Nuggets is a good win. But then you lose to the Thunder. It's just up and down. It feels like the process is different. Like it just feels like pulling teeth when you watch them on offense. Anytime that it's DeJounte and Trey together, and it almost runs better with Trey off the court, like just in terms of the way it makes sense. Their offense isn't better with Trey off the court because even though Trey is in the middle of this slump, he in the shoulder, I think you're right. Like it clearly seems to be bothering him. Like he wouldn't be shooting like this if it wasn't bothering him, right? But he's so good that like the process almost doesn't matter, but like it looks cleaner and it looks better when he's off the court. And like that matters on some level, I think, as you move into like the highest level of matchups that you can face. I don't know what to do with them. I feel like they are ripe for a shakeup trade in like a real substantial way. And it seems like based off the reporting, it's probably going to be John Collins, right? Mm-hmm. Like that feels like you can't really move DeAndre now because he signed the extension. I guess you could move Clint Capella. I don't see them moving DeJounte because DeJounte has been really good, I think, like for what he is. I mean, I think he's averaging like 21, 6, and 7 or something like that. I'll look at the numbers. Yeah, that's exactly it. He's shooting 37% on more volume from three than he ever has before. He's been pretty efficient. Like, it's hard to look at DeJounte as the problem because he's been really good. I guess it is Trey that's the problem, but like, that's probably going to turn based off of our history with Trey. So like, I just don't have a feel for them at this point, I guess is my point. And this far into the season, it's kind of important to have that feel. Like it's kind of important to know what your structure is going to be, how you can run offense, how you can get efficient offense. I mean, this team takes fewer threes than anybody in the league, but they're also middle in the pack in terms of like shots at the rim. right? Theoretically, you have guys like Trae Young, you have guys like DeJounte Murray, you have great lob threats like Clint Capella, John Collins, Onyeka Okongwu. You should be living at the rim. You should be living behind the arc if DeJounte is going to shoot 6 threes a game and make 37% of them. And you have Trae Young and you have Bogdan Bogdanovic. Like, there's every opportunity for you to just derive threes and shots at the rim. And they don't do it. Like, to me, look, every report from Shams and Sam Amick has said that like Nate McMillan's job is not in danger. To like that's what I would like. To me, when I watch them, I'm like, I don't know what they're like. I don't know how they're getting. I don't think he's helping them get efficient offense, I guess is what I would say. I don't think he's helping anything in terms of them deriving real easy looks. And I think that like these bullshit, like let's throw the ball in the mid post to DeAndre Hunter when he's out there and give him his 5 touches in the mid post per game. Keep it. Like, I don't need it. Like, DeAndre's good. I really like DeAndre. Maybe occasionally you can go to it, but they go to it way more than they should, I think. It's I don't know. To me, it's more of a, I would try to change the coach before I change the roster because I'm a big John Collins believer. Mm-hmm. But like John Collins undeniably has been phased out of this thing in like a way that is frustrating. And I don't know how to manage it. If I was like, I'd be pissed if I was John Collins. I would be genuinely really pissed because he busts his ass defensively every night that he's out there now. He's a guy that's averaged like 20 and 10 in the league. He was happy to take a step back. He averaged like what, like 16 and 10, 17 and 10 last year, something like that. And now he's like completely phased out. He's good enough to have a bigger role, and he's gotten better every year at the things he's been asked to get better at. So it's just like a weird vibe, right? Like it's a weird situation. And you can't even say that they're bad because they're 13 and 11. They're 4th in the Eastern Conference. It's not like they played a shit schedule. Like they've played a league average schedule so far.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with this. Like I just genuinely have no idea what to do with this.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very weird space to be in. And again, I think that they're going to end up being fine for the most part, but like, I anticipated more. Which probably, might be on my own. That's on me probably. But at the same time, like I was really excited about what this group could be this year. And I think that there's still the framework to make that happen. But yeah, right now has been, not great.
But it's just not great from a process perspective. Like that. And to me, that's almost more important as you're building this young roster, right? Like you want the process to be right. And that's why, look, if I was them, I'd try a coaching change before I tried a roster shakeup. But I would try a coaching change like now-ish so that I get 20 games or 30 games before the trade deadline and could know, okay, it's the coach, or okay, it's the roster that we need to shake up, right? Because they still have a lot of assets on the table. Like they still have DeAndre Hunter that you can move later on. They still have Onyeka Okongwu, AJ Griffin. Jalen Johnson has showcased some interesting things, even if I'm still I really like the processing speed and passing. I just worry about what it looks like as a role player in terms of what they actually need, given that guys like DeJounte and Trae are going to dominate the ball when the playoffs come around. So like they have real assets to be able to move for a high level piece or to be able to just shake things up. You could move John Collins. You have the salary ballast with Clint Capella, right? Like you have different things that you can do.
Yeah.
I would want to know if it's the coach that makes this process as bad as it is, or if it's the roster that makes things look as funky as it does. Or frankly, like I would want to know if it's just Trae Young being in the middle of a slump and like the shoulder not quite working. I feel like that's almost the piece that has made this even more difficult to judge, because we haven't gotten to see Trae and DeJounte, it feels like, at like full 100% operating capacity.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's what makes it exciting, because probably in like a month and a half, they'll have ripped off like a nice little like 15-7 stretch. And then Trae looks fine. And what do I know?
Yeah.
And then we stop hearing the reports about what things are between Nate and Trae. And that's just how it tends to go. Because it always tends to be like there's a mix of both. It's never just on one party. So it's fascinating times in Atlanta.
The one thing that has been super positive in Atlanta that I want to close on is AJ Griffin. Like, AJ Griffin is ready from the jump. He is ready to go right now to play a rotation level role. I would want him as like my seventh man right now, as opposed to in the starting lineup, which he was last night because of the absences of DeAndre Hunter and John Collins. But look, he's ready to go right now as a rotation guy, which is something that I did not expect coming in. I thought his defense would make him like completely unplayable. He was really, really bad last year defensively at Duke, but that's not the case. And his shooting and playmaking ability has only been amplified by playing in a more well-spaced setting, such as the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I think what's been really fun about him is there have been good things about his defense. I think that they've maybe been highlighted a little bit more than the bad things, to be honest. Like he still gets way lost off the ball. His screen navigation is pretty bad. But his hands are unreal. Like, he's so good at just spearing the ball away. Like, he's got really strong hands while also being really accurate, which sounds like a random thing, but it matters a lot for the way that he's just jutting the ball loose. And I feel like most of those are coming when he's getting blown by, because he's not awesome at staying in front of people. I do think he's held up better staying in front of people than I expected, especially as a rookie. So I think there have been like really good signs on that end. But again, it's been the offense. Like, part of why I actually don't hate him in the starting lineup. Like, actually, a friend of mine tweeted about this today. I think a Hawks fan named Andrew Kelly, really smart dude, like posited that if the Hawks are going to move on from John Collins, I would keep Adrian Griffin Jr. in the starting lineup and just play DeAndre at the 4. Like, I think when you think about A, spacing, B, just having, getting more a higher volume of threes up with this team, and having more players who can move the ball, move themselves, and be threats. Like, I think that that's really enticing. Like, again, I agree that he's probably more of somebody who should be a seventh man right now, but with what he has done, like what's been so hard to watch is like you see what he actually does for the offense when he's in part of it.
Yeah.
And it's been really important. Like, he's so good just attacking with the ball in his hands. Like, he's very decisive. There's not really any hesitation. He gets the ball off quickly from any spot of the floor. It's been a really fun run from him to watch. And I think it'll be interesting to see his teams, try and find other ways to attack him, and especially on defense, or try and make him a passer more on offense. But he's really played well.
He's been the ideal like advantage player, right? Yeah. And with guys like Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, who can almost always at will create that advantage for your team, having a guy like AJ Griffin with them, like, I do believe that. Like, I think that it'd be super valuable. I just don't know if the defense can hold up. And look, the big thing is, if the defense can't hold up, they're going to need to rebound at a super high level. And having AJ and DeAndre out there, neither of whom are good rebounders, maybe you can make the case that DeJounte, who's one of the best guard rebounders in the league, makes up for it. But I don't know if he makes up for it enough to where they're going to be able to end enough possessions if you play DeAndre and AJ as like your 3 and your 4 next to Clint. Defensive rebounding wise, they are 19th in the NBA so far. And that's with like John Collins and Onyeka Okongwu and Clint Capella playing a bunch of minutes, right? Yep. So I'm a little bit worried about the way that would look. But at the end of the day, this has been an ideal start for AJ Griffin. He looks like a guy that is what every team is looking for, a 6'6" wing that can really, really shoot the ball. There are concerns moving forward that, I don't think we need to harp on because he's a rookie and because he's still figuring things out. But I've been very, very excited. This is the AJ Griffin that people were hoping for coming out of Duke and coming into the start of his pro career. Like when he or coming into Duke, I guess, when he was a senior in high school and didn't play, and like some of the U16 stuff that we saw from AJ Griffin when he was with Team USA and looked like maybe a number 1 overall pick candidate at that point, if things really would have broken right. Mm-hmm. So I love to see that he's been really, really effective so far.